Today is the new moon. It is December 1st on the 2024, and it is a very powerful new moon. It is a dynamic of new beginnings, but it is also a dynamic of endings. And if you look at the dynamics of the reflections of what's going on in your world, in the consensus reality, there is still the dynamic of the two or more different energies, kind of at loggerheads, where people are just kind of energetically. Energetically, you know who you are. Energetically, you may feel, and in the dynamic of your own identities. There's a whole knowledge and a whole hopefully, there is a whole foundation of understanding, a whole foundation of your connection to the greater dynamic, a whole understanding of the connection to your and how you each are responsible for the dynamics that occur in your life. Now, one of the things that we want to alleviate you of is the responsibility to be a victim, right? You no longer have to be a victim. It is not necessary any longer to be a victim. But if you're not going to be a victim, then you must engage all of the dynamics of your abilities. And that means physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And often in the dynamics of your lives, you find out that you can deal with the physical often much more easily than you can deal with the emotional or the spiritual. And it is the emotional stuff that seems to drive you in directions that, what shall we say, are not in your best interests. And so, in these sorts of situations, you realize that if you just slow things down a little bit and take the opportunities to just stop for a moment and think before you react. Because in the dynamics of emotion, usually what you have happening is you have an external source that is happening within your reality. Now, it can happen completely internally also, but then we're starting to get into psychosis and things like that. But in the dynamic of a normal situation, your normal lives, you basically go along with your sets of beliefs, your sets of understanding, and the world seems to reflect that dynamic back to you. And so if you are locked in certain what we call karmic tape loops of behavior, where you seem to be repeating the same energetic dynamics over and over again, we call that a karmic tape loop. And those karmic tape loops are things that you have planned to happen previous to this incarnation. Now, please don't hold us to this time stuff because, from the other side, from our perspective, there is no time. All time is simultaneous. Now we realize that may be a hard thing to grasp, but the whole dynamic of linear time, one moment following another, really only works within this particular version of the physical reality in so many other ways. And how many times have you been able to transcend that dynamic of time and space within your own imagination, within your own dynamics of experience? So we speak to these pieces of yourself because it is these pieces of yourself that you usually have the least amount of mastery over. And it is important that as you move more into your maturity, more into the dynamics of the reality that is pressuring each and every one of you from the outside. You are being, you are each on a soul's journey. You you decided previous to this lifetime that you were going to take this journey. If you keep bouncing up against stuff in your life that is uncomfortable, it is something that you intended to deal with, and you can't avoid it. And you can spend most of your life, because many people do, you can spend most of your life trying to avoid it, but it just always seems to come back around again. So that, and where is it? It's in a dynamic of emotionally, it's in old feelings reoccurring over and over and over again. You know, one of the prime examples that we use is love. You know, where you attract a certain type of person into your life and they wind up betraying you or they wind up hurting you in some way, shape, or form. And then you move on and you think you've healed and you're attracted to the next person and they do a very similar dynamic so that all of a sudden you're feeling that same old crappy feeling that you were feeling from the other one. This is a karmic tape loop. This is something that is a dynamic that if you look at it and you take the time, the space to say, wait, just one moment, instead of just reacting, instead of just following old neural pathways, maybe it becomes possible to, in that moment, completely change your reality. We tell a story of a dynamic of when we were working a number of years ago in Indiana, of all places, and we were working at a spiritualist church. And we had been to this spiritualist church. We would go back approximately once a year, and we think we did that for 3 or 4 years. But at the end of one session, before we think the second session, the pastor of the church came to us and said, you know, this whole thing about love, I keep winding up in situations where I pick the wrong person and they lead me to disaster. They lead me to betrayal. They lead me to hurt. They lead me to abandonment. And she described that whole dynamic of that feeling that she kept having over and over again. And so she was able, we said to her, you know, maybe you need to pick the person that you are not attracted to, but the person that you would say, oh no, they're not for me. Why? Because they are the people that are loving. And so often what happens, you wind up, you know, your template is set for the dynamic of loss. If you come into a lifetime wishing to learn about love, are you going to give yourself loving parents? Not likely. Or are you going to give yourself a situation where that love is not taken away early on in your life so that there is a template that is an emotional template that exists? So this is what we are trying to show you is that there are opportunities within the dynamics of your reality, even if you have never done any of this kind of work before, to be able to maintain a dynamic of objectivity and to be able to look at your reality in such a way as to realize that you can make choices.